Hi, this is Daryl Myatt from Keller, Texas. Today is Wednesday, February 23rd, 2011. A lot of crazy things going on in the world today. Let's have a look at what they are. This first story out of the Telegraph.co. Libya. Civil war breaks out as Gaddafi mounts a rearguard fight. Forces loyal to Colonel Muammar Gaddafi made good on threats to trigger a civil war in Libya on Wednesday night by taking up positions across the capital, Tripoli, and launching a rearguard fight against rebels in major cities. Civil war. I always thought that was kind of a silly phrase. Civil and war all together. I know what it means, but it just seems kind of like an oxymoron to me. Anyway, this story says residents of parts of the capital were trapped in their homes as thousands of soldiers patrolled the streets, accompanied by African mercenaries. Tanks took up positions around public buildings, including government offices, while sandbag defenses were also being built. "We will fight until death," a pro-Gaddafi soldier in his early 20s said outside a military compound close to Tripoli's Green Square, which had been cleared of demonstrators by yesterday morning. "The country needs stability at a time like this, and this is what we are providing. The people are on our side," he said, as they kill people. Residents said bodies were still piling up in hospitals from shootings of the previous 2 days. "Anywhere we go there is danger," said one woman, a 28-year-old mother of 4 who asked not to be named. "All we want is food and fresh water for our children, but it is impossible to find. Security is the only concern of the authorities." As ministers, generals, and diplomats around the world defected, government spokesmen loyal to Colonel Gaddafi were trying to rally people to his side. Colonel Gaddafi signaled a fight back in a speech yesterday when he called on supporters to chase away the rats and the terrorists. I told you about that yesterday. It's in a sad state in Libya. There's a lot of people that need protection, that need food and water, that need shelter and security. It's real easy to sit back and not think about it here in America while you go home and watch American Idol tonight and have a cold glass of wine or whatever. Things are a little different in other parts of the world, and they seriously need our help. They need our prayers. New Zealand. Guys, please look at what's happening around the world. Look at the volcanoes, the earthquakes, kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation. Look at the signs that were all prophesied thousands of years ago, people. They're happening now. They're happening. We're getting close. Jesus is coming. Are you ready? Do you know Him? Are you ready to stand before Him? I don't think I am. Long way to go. Anyway, here's another story out of Arad Sheba. Time source says Gaddafi to blow up oil pipelines as gas prices soar. Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi, once termed a mad god by former U.S. President Ronald Reagan, termed a mad god. Doesn't that sound very eerily similar, like Magog in the Bible? I know I'm not reaching. It just occurred to me. I was like, odd. Anyway, he's threatening to blow up oil facilities, a source told Time magazine journalist Robert Baer. And who knows? Gaddafi has said, "I'm going to die in this country. It's either me or chaos," is basically the message he's trying to give to his country. He has an elite part of his 45,000-man army, says he has the money and the arms to fight for a long time, and he intends to. This could get very ugly over there. You know what? I almost see this whole thing ending in Gaddafi's death. Someone's going to put a bullet in his head. I'm not wishing that. I'm not praying for it. I just see that's one way this is probably going to end. A lot of his own soldiers have defected. A lot of people that he gave orders to do something didn't do what he told them to do, and they bailed out. There are reports of jets that were told to bomb areas. The pilots ejected and the plane crash landed. Okay, there's a couple of those that I've read about. Anyway, let's move on. This story out of Yahoo. Fear stalks Tripoli. Celebrations in Libya's east. Thousands of Libyans celebrated the liberation of the eastern city of Benghazi from the ruler Muammar Gaddafi, who was reported to have sent a plane to bomb them on Wednesday as he clung to power, but the crew bailed out of the aircraft after it took off from the capital Tripoli. This is just craziness. Tripoli, along with western Libya, is still under Gaddafi's control, and people there said they were too afraid of pro-government militia to go out after Gaddafi threatened violence against protesters in a speech on Tuesday night. As many as 1,000 people have been killed since this revolt began about a week ago, Italian Foreign Minister Franco Frattini said, as world leaders scrambled to evacuate their citizens and disagreed on how to end the turmoil. It's just craziness. Could this type of thing spread elsewhere? Could this spread to Europe and the Middle East and America? Well, read this story, or I'll read it to you, out of Yahoo. Iran's president says Mideast upheaval will reach the United States. This out of Tehran today. Iran's president said Wednesday today he is certain that the wave of unrest in the Middle East will spread to Europe and North America, bringing an end to governments he accused of oppressing and humiliating people. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, whose own country resorted to violence to disperse an opposition rally earlier this month, also condemned Libya's use of force against demonstrators, calling it grotesque. Wasn't that a double standard? He's calling grotesque something he did 2 weeks ago. This is the mentality of this man. Okay? Let me tell you some more here. Iran's hardline leaders have sought to claim some credit for the uprisings in Arab nations, saying they are evidence that its 1979 Islamic Revolution, which ousted the U.S.-backed Shah, is being replayed. So now they're saying, that thing we did 32 years ago is why this stuff is happening in Libya and Egypt and Yemen and all these places. Not Yemen, Tunisia. That's funny. Taking credit for something they did 32 years ago is making something happen now. Interesting. The embattled movement called for social and political reforms in Iran has labeled that view hypocritical. And to prove it, the opposition tried to stage its own rallies in solidarity with the anti-government protests in Egypt last week. Clashes between security forces and demonstrators left at least 2 people dead and dozens injured. Let's see. The world is on the verge of big developments, said Ahmadinejad. Changes will be forthcoming and will engulf the whole world, from Asia to Africa and from Europe to North America, he said today. The tone of the remarks seemed to draw on the belief by Shiite Muslims that a revered 9th century saint known as the Hidden Imam will reappear before Judgment Day to end tyranny and promote justice in the world. This guy has to come amidst global chaos, and Ahmadinejad is trying to make that happen. That's one of the main reasons for his pursuit of nuclear weapons, to create global chaos, so he can usher in this 12th Imam or Mahdi. He says it's a wave that's coming. Even while denying his own opponents the right to demonstrate, the president urged Libya's Muammar Gaddafi to heed his people's demands. He sharply criticized Libya's leaders for their use of force. Oh, I can do it, but you can't do it. Okay, it's do as I say, not as I do kind of mentality, right? Ugh, double standards. Drives me nuts. He says this is very grotesque. It is unimaginable that there is someone who kills and bombards his own people. Huh, really? I strongly advise them to let nations have their say and meet their nation's demands if they claim to be officials of those nations, Ahmadinejad said. Of course, anyone who does not heed the demands of his own nation will have a clear fate, he added. Prophesying his own end. Maybe? Let's see. Iranian police and paramilitary groups brutally put down protesters on their own streets after Ahmadinejad's disputed re-election in 2009. The opposition claimed the vote was rigged, and hundreds of thousands of protesters poured into the streets, posing the most serious challenge to Iran's ruling system since the '79 revolution. More than 80 demonstrators were killed in that crackdown. Of course, the government says it's only about 30. Yeah, I'm going to believe anything they say. So, he's telling Gaddafi, hey, you shouldn't fire upon your own people. while his own regime did it earlier this month. Drives me nuts, man. Here's something out of Yahoo. Official says Iran and North Korea are in one trench. This out of Tehran today. North Korea's deputy foreign minister says Tehran and Pyongyang are in one trench in the fight against arrogant powers. Vice President Pak Kil-yeon made the remarks during a meeting with Iranian Vice President Mohammad Reza Rahimi. The comments were posted on the website of Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Wonder how I could get onto that website. Send him a little message. A little, hey, how you doing kind of thing. You think he'd watch my video if I sent it to him? I doubt it. Let's see. Ramini said, improving ties between Tehran and Pyongyang are a thorn in the eyes of the world's arrogant powers, a clear reference to the United States. So, North Korea and Iran are very closely related. Here's something else out of Yahoo.com that kind of makes you wonder about the tie between Iran and North Korea. South Korea and China worry over North Korea's nuclear program. This out of Seoul. The foreign ministers of South Korea and China expressed worries today, on Wednesday, about North Korea's recently disclosed uranium enrichment program, which could give it a second way to make atomic bombs, a South Korean official said. The foreign ministers agreed to consult closely on how to deal with the North's uranium program, a South Korean foreign ministry official said, on condition of anonymity because of department policy. Efforts to deal with North Korea's nuclear capability took on renewed urgency in November when a visiting American scientist was shown a uranium enrichment facility. South Korea says that violates a past international disarmament for aid deal and UN resolutions. North Korea is already believed to have enough weaponized plutonium for at least a half dozen atomic bombs. Oh, great. Great. China, host of a stalled six-nation North Korean nuclear disarmament talks, is officially opposed to the North's nuclear drive. Well, there's a change. But it remains to be seen whether China, which is North Korea's only major ally, will allow the United Nations to criticize the North's uranium enrichment efforts. Interesting developments around the world today, including this one. It's just another piece of the puzzle falling into place. This out of MSN.com, MSNBC, either one. The story's all over the place. Obama administration will no longer defend Federal Marriage Act in court. Yeah, you heard me right. In a major reversal, the Obama administration has notified Congress that it will no longer defend the federal law that says marriage can only exist between a man and a woman. There it is. Attorney General Eric Holder says he has recommended, and the President has agreed, that the law unconstitutionally discriminates against same-sex couples who are legally married but whose status is not recognized by the federal government. Given a number of factors, including a documented history of discrimination, Holder wrote in a statement, the administration has concluded that classifications based on sexual orientation must be subject to a higher constitutional standard than ordinary laws, and the Federal Defense of Marriage Act does not meet that test, he said. Here's the immediate practical effect of this change. The Defense of Marriage Act remains in effect unless a federal court strikes it down or Congress repeals it. The government will stop defending the law in 2 court cases, in New York and Connecticut, where the law has been challenged, and in any other cases challenging the law. If it is to be defeated, members of Congress would have to step up and join those lawsuits. In the statement, Holder argued that the legal landscape has changed since the Defense of Marriage Act was passed 15 years ago and signed into law by President Clinton. He mentioned the Supreme Court's ruling striking down criminal laws against homosexuality and repeal of the military's don't ask, don't tell policy, and the fact that the several lower courts have found the DOMA law unconstitutional. Don't get me wrong here. I am not a gay basher. Okay? I have a few gay friends. They don't hate me for my standing on this. However, Homosexuality is an abomination to the Lord. It's a sin, and it's not unlike any other sin. Adultery, stealing, murder, lying. You can hate the sin and love the sinner, okay? I'm not bashing anybody. But let me just remind you of a passage in Luke 17, verse 28 through 30. This is Jesus talking. He says, "Likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot. They ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed." Okay, what were they doing in the days of Lot? Well, homosexuality was the entire reason that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. God saw the evil and the sin and the wickedness there and said, I have to destroy it. And so now here's Obama basically opening the door nationwide, federally, saying, I'm not going to defend the Defense of Marriage Act. It's no longer between a man and a woman. Woohoo! Let all the guys get married, let all the girls get married. Really? As in the days of Lot, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. We're seeing so many pieces of the puzzle falling into place here, people. This is another one. Can you think we're not living as in the days of Lot? Has homosexuality ever been as rampant in America, and in fact all over the world, as it is right now? You know, here's a strange fact for you. In 1960, 48 of the 50 states had laws against homosexuality. It was against the law to practice homosexuality in 1960, a mere 51 years ago. Today, it's a crime to speak against it, almost. And we wonder why America is sliding from God's favor? Really? It's pretty clear to me why we are. This country is heading to hell in a handbasket because we've turned from God. Here's more proof of that. I'm sorry, I totally disagree with this. We need a man in the White House that says no to this, no to gay marriage, no to abortion, no to all kinds of things that are bringing this country down. This used to be a great nation. You know, in the 50s and 60s, we were the cutting edge. The 70s, boy, America was just... Okay, there's a little dip there in the 70s. But where's our manufacturing gone? What do we export anymore? Jobs, for one thing. I think our biggest export is jobs. We send them all overseas. We can't continue like this. We can't keep spending like we're wealthy when we're borrowing money from everyone else. I think Obama's in place to do exactly what needs to be done to get America out of the way. And he's doing a good job. I need to get in the Word some more, okay? How about Psalm 105, verse 1 through 4? Give thanks to the Lord, call on His name, make known among the nations what He has done. Sing to Him, sing praise to Him, tell of all His wonderful acts. Glory in His holy name. Let the hearts of those who seek the Lord rejoice. Look to the Lord in His strength. Seek His face always. Psalm 9, verse 9 and 10. The Lord also will be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. And they that know Thy name will put their trust in Thee, for Thou, Lord, hast not forsaken them that seek Thee. All right. Let's go to Matthew 12, verse 40. I've been talking about parables lately. Now, bear with me. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Okay, I know. Technically, this isn't a parable. But it's close. And it serves the purpose of pointing us to the one truth in God's kingdom that manages to outshine all the others. And that's this. Despite being crucified and buried for 3 days, Jesus victoriously rose from the dead, and he lives today. Wow! That's worth celebrating. That's the basis of our faith. Jesus overcame sin, he overcame the world, he overcame Satan, he overcame death. And since he's in me, I've already overcome also. We're overcomers, people. Without even realizing it, the prophet Jonah was a precursor to all this, as he was in a watery tomb of his own for 3 days before rising under somewhat less dignified conditions. You can read about that in Jonah 2:10. Jonah was a picture, or a living parable, of the event that divided human existence into 2 separate segments: misery and joy. Before the death and resurrection of Jesus, life was miserable because man could never shake free of that big question mark that loomed larger and larger on the horizon of his lifetime. What will happen when I die? Okay, it was a huge mystery. All this planet had was the testimony of Scripture that God was loving, he was just, and he would provide for those who trusted in him. Those are comforting words, but when weighed against the reality that death would come one day, it was still a very frightening prospect. Read Hebrews 2, verses 14 and 15. But with Christ's resurrection came a new era. Now there was a person that mankind could point to and say with certainty that there's life beyond the grave. Okay? There's life beyond the grave. The grave isn't the end of the story. There's infinitely more to be experienced. There's hope, peace, love, and joy, and eternity with God Almighty. We can't even wrap our tiny little brains around that. Death's sting has been absorbed and abolished, and we will never know the misery that once ruled the world and ruled the heart of humanity. Jonah is a living parable of this resurrection, and the resurrection is a truth that embodies life itself. Let me go to Matthew 27, verse 62, and I'm going to read through Matthew 28:15. This is after Jesus' death on the cross and after he was buried. Matthew 27:62. On the next day, which followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees gathered together to Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember while he was still alive, how that deceiver said, After 3 days I will rise. Funny that Pilate and his soldiers remembered he said he would rise after 3 days. Therefore command that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away and say to the people, He has risen from the dead. So the last deception will be worse than the first. Pilate said to them, You have a guard. Go your way, make it as secure as you know how. So they went and made the tomb secure, sealing the stone and setting the guard. They had a lot of guards there, okay, guarding the tomb. Now after the Sabbath, as the first day of the week began to dawn, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake. For an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat on it. His countenance was like lightning, and his clothing as white as snow. And the guards shook for fear of him, and became like dead men. But the angel answered and said to the woman, Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen. As he said, Come, see the place where the Lord lay, and go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and indeed he is going before you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. So they went out quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to bring his disciples word. And as they went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them, saying, Rejoice! So they came and held him by the feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me. Now while they were going, behold, some of the guard came into the city and reported to the chief priests all the things that had happened. When they had assembled with the elders and consulted together, they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers, saying, Tell them his disciples came at night and stole him away while we slept. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we will appease him and make you secure. So they took the money and did as they were instructed, and this saying is commonly reported among the Jews until this day. Word of God. He is risen. That's cause for celebration. And we have already overcome death through his victory. Okay, we've already overcome this world through Jesus' victory of this world. We've already overcome Satan. We've already overcome sin. And we will be just like him when we're resurrected and called into his glory. What a day that will be. And we're getting closer and closer and closer to that day. So hang on, stand strong, and don't let anyone drag you down. God bless you. Good Lord willing, I'll see you again tomorrow.